Good afternoon or evening. Good afternoon. Thank you for making time to join us today. And I will invite Deepak, who is our Director of Emerging Markets at Village Capital, to talk a bit about Village Capital and what we do. And also Wale, who's the founder and CEO at TechPoint, to talk a bit about TechPoint, and then Wale will introduce the panel.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here, and I hope you have a great evening. And it's been an amazing week being here, meeting startups, spending time with an awesome group of people from entrepreneur support organizations from across Africa. I'm Deepak Menon. I oversee emerging markets for Village Capital. Just take a minute to tell you who we are. So Village Capital is a global venture development organization headquartered in Washington, D.C. We work across the US, Africa, Asia, Latin America, parts of Europe. What we do is we work with entrepreneurs through our curriculum and our community of investors and large strategic partners who are interested in entrepreneur support. We work with entrepreneurs to help them towards investment readiness and scale. So we do this through training, through connections with investors, through connections with other strategic partners who would help them build their businesses, open up their markets, and scale. And we work with entrepreneurs in 5 sectors: financial inclusion, health, education, agriculture, and clean energy. And the reason we do these 5 sectors is because our theme, our mission at Village Capital is to help and support entrepreneurs who are focusing on solving problems around access, affordability, inclusion, sustainability at scale, who want to create impact at scale, who want to make lives better for the communities around them, and who want to build business models to create companies which will grow and which will solve a lot of the problems that the world is facing today. Those are the kinds of entrepreneurs we are privileged to work with. And now, further privilege, another step in the journey for us. In our own path towards scale, we have now begun to work as part of the WillCap Communities Initiative with entrepreneur support organizations. We work with them to share our curriculum, to share our best practices, to share our tools and methodologies. And these organizations, in turn, will take what they find relevant out of this. They will take it back to their communities, their countries, and they will work with their entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurs that they have around them in their communities, their countries. They will work with them to help them grow and scale. And so in that way, we at Village Capital are privileged to work with this awesome group of entrepreneur support organizations here today, this week, who have traveled from various parts of Africa. They're also from Nigeria, so who have traveled here to work with us, to meet all of you, who will go back with everything they've learned, and we hope will find it useful and valuable to help entrepreneurs in their regions to really achieve the kind of impact and build the kind of companies that those entrepreneurs want to build. And and I'm here for the rest of the evening. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone else might have about Village Capital's work. As I said, I look after Village Capital's work across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. We also have Emily here from Village Capital, who has pretty much built and grown WillCap communities from the beginning, and can certainly answer all your questions about how this part of Village Capital functions. Yeah. Once again, it's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you, TechPoint. Thank you, all of you, and enjoy the evening. Thank you.
So, good evening, everyone. My name is Wale Yusuf. I'm the founder and CEO of TechPoint. Who knows TechPoint here? Please, why you not? Okay, so TechPoint, we are a publishing company. We focus on technology, startup, and entrepreneurship. And currently, we used to focus on Nigeria, but now we just expanded to Africa as a whole, and we are really trying to gain ground in West Africa now. And we publish in English and French. We organize events as well. community event. We've hosted 2 events this year that we have up to close to 10,000 people that attended the event. And again, we have a event coming. Hello, we have a startup event coming up in January called TechPoint Build. TechPoint Build is a West African event, and we are encouraging everyone to apply for the competition where we are giving $10,000 grant, and we want people from Francophone, Anglophone, because one thing we discovered is when I went to some Francophone countries, I discovered that to Nigerian entrepreneurs, Kenya is closer than Togo to you. People just jump on flight and you go to Kenya when you want to think of expansion. And we are trying to bridge the gap. We're trying to bridge the gap, the language barrier. I know it's going to be a lot of work, but what we see in all these regions, they were really encouraging. So we need to work together. That's what TechPoint is doing. We publish different insightful information on startup, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So this evening, we are working with Village Capital to make sure we bring everybody together to discuss some interesting stuff, because we discovered that discussing most of these things is what actually makes everything go further. And we are really happy to be here. We welcome all our friends from outside the country. We hope you are a country. And you can please make sure you taste the jollof rice. But I know Zeniga guys are here. You guys own this jollof rice, but don't worry, just manage what we have. Okay, so thank you so much. I will hand over the mic to Ifeanyi now. Am I right? So Ifeanyi is our startup guy, like our startup guy. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ifeanyi Njemewose, and basically I'm a storyteller. So what does that mean? I tell stories around startups, basically things happening around our primary market, which is Nigeria. Of course, we've expanded to Africa, and that also, my job extends to that as well. So today I'm going to be moderating a session on acceleration, what it ought to be, and what it should be like, when it comes to Africa. And again, likely earlier on I said I'm a storyteller. So most storytellers tend to focus on their job, like they're always writing and stuff like that. So yeah, I hope it's going to be a very interesting session, and over the course of it, you all are going to find out if this particular storyteller is a good talker or is just one of those guys that just, sit down back there and make things happen. Okay, so well, there's not going to be a panel session if I don't have my panelists. So together we're going to be discussing the subject matter. So I'm going to call them on stage one after the other. I'm going to call on the CEO and founder of Printivo, Yemi. Where is he? Yomi, rather. Next person I'm going to call on stage is the business developer of Accountia, Ni Adeboye. Where is he? And our final panelist for this session is Odunwayo Ewoni, the co-founder of Piggy Bank. All right, so I do hope you all enjoy the conversation. Okay, so like I earlier introduced, this is a panel session to talk about, accelerator, what acceleration should look like in Africa. We have a lot of, basically since the model started in Silicon Valley, it's been, everywhere all across the globe and even Africa too, we do that. So, but we're going to come down to the nitty-gritty of this particular word, right? So I'm going to start with Nii. So for you, let me ask, what does acceleration means?
Okay, hi everybody. Am I audible enough? Okay, so when you talk about acceleration, for me, it's all about speeding up your business in a startup aspect. So I'm going to use account here as example. So acceleration to us means we want to grow faster, and the best way is grow 10x. So when you say you are being accelerated, that means you want to speed up your growth. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to allow Yemi also answer the same
I think
question.
Nia said it all, but in addition to that, it's about learning what you didn't know before launching. I think we need to accept that we don't know things to be able to know more. And for us, it was a case of going back to learn certain things that we didn't know before launching Pointivo and then accelerating ourselves forward.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So, you guys have answered correctly, but let me just say this, to the best of my knowledge. I feel accelerators, these cohort-based programs, comes with a lot of perks such as seed investment, mentorship, a lot of them actually. So, I'm going to give the question to you. So, for you, what's the primary motivation? Is it the funding? Is it the mentorship? Is it the connection? Like when you make that move to go into an accelerator program, what do you consider as value?
A combination of everything. It's a startup needs mentorship, it needs a network, and it needs money. So for the most part, we would consider applying to an accelerator program that doesn't give money if it appears that the value and the network outweigh like the value of the funds they will give us. Essentially, you should offer 2 out of 3 at least for you to apply to one. That's what I think.
So for you, when you say 2 out of 3, what's like? Just give us which. If it will boil down to like this, you have these 3 options, and you have to just pick 2. For piggy bank, what would it be?
For the stage that we were at, for instance, when we applied to Village Capital, we picked the network and we picked the mentorship, right? Because the money wasn't very sure. Right. Okay. So for the stage we were at when we applied to Village Capital, which was last year, right? We picked the mentorship and the network, which really helped because it was a peer accelerator program, right? And then, but for now, and then we've done a couple which didn't have funding attached to it. So for us, it's been mostly about the network and the guilt. A startup founder needs to be able to turn people and all those dots you meet in your past into funding moving forward for the company. So I'll pick mentorship and network.
So I think I like that answer, and I was expecting that, to be quite honest, because we're Africans, and a lot of us like to be very conservative and what have you. But I think I'm going to allow Yemi answer this, but it's a spin-off of an answer you just gave. So, like she said, she looked forward to mentorship and connection, and trust me, a whole lot of people also say that as well. Like I've heard so many people say what they look forward to in these programs are the mentorship and the connection, basically. So do we feel like we don't like to tell ourselves the truth, or like we don't say, oh, funding is important and all of that?
So the first thing I would say is that funding is important, and it's not just important; it's very, very important because it takes money to make money, and it's one of the honest truths that we should always tell each other. In our case, we had raised seed funding and we're already going the business before we went into an accelerator, which is 500 startups. And it was because first we wanted to raise money, and we realized that we had things that we were supposed to have done before even raising this money. And I mean, I was in Cape Town, I was in Nairobi, and Dave McClure was also speaking at the same event, and we got talking. And it was like, oh, fantastic business, we would love to invest, but we can't invest outside the accelerator program. And within 20 minutes of the conversation, I realized that 500 Startup had invested in 3 similar businesses like ours. And they even exited one, which is Print.io. They actually exited from that business. And they are currently still in about 3. And the batch before our batch, they had a similar business that they had invested in. So I could see that they had track record, they understand the space, they have investors who can actually follow on whatever they've done in the deal. It made a lot of sense for us. So we applied for the program and we got in. So funding is actually one key thing you get from any accelerator program. But in addition to that, there is a connection which money can't buy. And then there is the mentorship and there is the knowledge base. I can tell you, we did 500 startups, and within the first 2 weeks of the program, I was telling myself, like, geez, wish I knew then the things I know now. And I mean, it made a lot of sense for us.
To add, for people who are planning to apply to accelerator programs and shelving the funding aspect, it completely depends on the accelerator you're applying to, right? Before you pick network and mentorship over funding for any accelerator program, you should have spoken to people who pass through the program to see if you get any use from it. There's like many accelerator programs that don't offer money outside of the program, right? If your startup is not self-sustainable, if your startup actually desperately needs money, networking and not your needs. So also that.
Okay, thank you very much, Odu. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next question. So there's this debate, right, about whole accelerator, following the Silicon Valley model, and it's becoming like a thing generally. So first of all, let us even understand like what's really the Silicon Valley model when it comes to accelerator. Like, is it something that because it's not Nigeria, it's not our time, then it's a big deal?
Okay, is that question for me? For you. So for me, and from various conversations that has been happening online, people tend to see the Silicon Valley model as invest in 100 startups and 99 will fail and 1 will excel, and the Valley is okay with it. We need to realize that Africa is different, and raising money in Africa is different. This is not a place where you want to fund 100 startups and expect 99 to fail. So it's the reason why investors in our space are quite a bit more careful, and they tend to shy away from what Silicon Valley tends to promote. However, it's a bit difficult to actually separate the 2 lines of thought, because the entire process of running a startup or funding a startup is a risk on its own. No one told you that the market would embrace your business in the first place. I mean, we've seen the best of ideas, they failed within few months of being launched. So there's a risk factor of it. It's just a case of how well can we minimize the risk factor and not just mirror what the Valley would encourage founders to do. I mean, the first day of 500 startups, the first thing Dave McClure said was, there are 21 companies in this cohort, and we don't mind if every one of you fails. And if you do, we realize that it's a risk and we've taken that risk, but we just want you to fail in a way that people would fund your business again if you start something else. Well, I doubt if there's any African investor that will tell you they are fine with that, and you can't blame these investors for that. The funds are not readily available in this space as they are in the West. So basically, that's just the way I see it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to allow Lee to weigh in on the question.
Okay. Well, for us, we didn't participate in a foreign acceleration. We actually got accelerated here in Nigeria. But well, one thing that we know for sure is when you talk about acceleration and also investors' behavior, Just as Yomi said, Nigeria is actually, or Africa itself is actually a kind of difficult place, I'll put it, but at the same time, there are people who are trying to understand what the dynamics looks like. And I will just paint a scenario of an example. So an investor is actually someone like us, and let me just throw it to the house. So if you want to invest in something, now you're investing in an idea. A typical person would think, if I'm going to give you 30 million, or let me just say $20,000 to invest in an idea, I can at the same time go and import cars, and at least I see this asset, and I know in the next maybe 3 months I can sell this car, and then I can get my money back. But in startup way, you're not sure if the money is going to come back, and so that makes it a bit difficult for people in Nigeria to really put down the money. It's better for them, or it's easier for them to put money back maybe in some companies outside Nigeria, because now the market is different. And if you look at Nigeria as it is, many startups are, well, I won't say struggling, but they're just trying to understand the market. And the market you're addressing in Nigeria is a bit different from the market you're addressing outside. So that's why, man, investors here are a bit very careful in putting down their money there. Yep.
So I want you to still take this. So there's a reason why I like the fact that you're here, and that's because you've been in accelerator program here in Nigeria. I think very recently you also made it into MESS. So MESS is Ghana, right? So let's say that's international, right? And I also know that you guys have a background from Belgium. You guys had to start from Belgium and all of that. So you've witnessed, how things work in 3 different markets. So looking at that, when you look at all these 3 different elements, and you have to make a decision like based on how a model should be like, what it should emulate. What would you say should be the primary composition of an acceleration?
Okay, so well, for us, we got into acceleration in Belgium, but not really. Funding is not actually part of it, so it's more like, okay, just come in, we give you free space, and then we give you mentorship. And also, when we get back to Nigeria, we had opportunity of going into an acceleration with Ventures platform. And one thing that's quite different is with Ventures platform or local acceleration, they are actually very much particular about your business and actually about the market and how well do you really understand the market. Because if you don't really understand the market, the solution you're building will end up becoming something you use yourself, and people are not going to pay for it. And well, for us, or for me, I would say the best way in which an acceleration or an accelerator should look at it is we need to focus more on the product, because your product is what you give out to people, and then they pay for it. And it is very, very, very important that accelerators should look down critically your product, because as I've said earlier, if your product is not good or you're building your product based on your own idea, then it's only you that's going to use it. Yep.
All right. So thank you very much, Nei. I have a secondary question, but I want Yomi to answer that. Okay. So one interesting thing I want us to talk about right now is like, the whole importance of an acceleration, right? Because, for me, I like to consider acceleration program a privilege, because you have to be doing something interesting to get into one, right? So looking at how you started, eventually you made it into 500 startups. And 500 startup, if I'm not mistaken, that was the 20th cohort that Printivo eventually made it into, right? And that was last year. So everybody knows Printivo. Printivo have been around for say 3, 4, 5 years, and they're about like it started from school basically.
4 years,
yeah.
basically. 4.
Yeah. So why do you feel it was that point that an acceleration was necessary?
So the first thing I would say was, is it was very important for us to go in at that time because first we realized that we didn't know certain things. Secondly, we were going to raise funding, and we said, you know what, let's do this and then raise another a round via that. And it was actually fundraising conversation that led to us going into 500 startups because we were talking to Dave McClure. And a lot of people were people were not convenient with it. But people were very vocal. People would reach out to me and say, Yomi, you guys are too much for an accelerator program. I remember a founder called me at 11 p.m. It was like, Jude, I mean, you guys just go and raise Series A and just move on. And then we got to 500 startups, and guess what? There's a startup in our courts that was making 20 million ARR. I'm not joking. We had a guy that was making 10 million ARR. We had a startup that was making 5 million. In fact, we had a startup that was founded by a VC who left his firm to start his own company. This guy could have knocked doors in Silicon Valley and raised any amount he wanted to raise. But he decided to come into 500 startups. So at that point, we realized that, you know what? All this thing we make in Africa that we call, sometimes that you call, a lot of revenue. By the time you convert it into dollars, it's not a lot, it's not that much. And you need to step out to really understand just how well you should be doing. It's the reason why you see that when startups go for accelerator programs, especially in Silicon Valley, they come back, the hunger is just too much. It's because people suddenly realize that, dude, this Naira is not the next thing to start thinking about. So, I mean, we were not too big for an accelerator program. It was pretty obvious when we got to the valley. Yeah.
So, Odun, Piggy Bank is in accelerator program right now, and I'm not mistaken, Village Capital, right? So, Oh, you're not? Oh, you were in 2017. Okay, interesting. So, for me, I like to look at the progress, right? 'Cause a lot of times we're going to say, yes, we did this and we did that and we got this from this, particular acceleration program we were part of. So, for you, what was the biggest takeaway from that, accelerator?
Okay, well, we've been to 3 accelerator programs. From Village Capital, what we received essentially, Village Capital has something called the viral pathway, which kind of helps you evaluate your business as a whole, right? And I think that is really, I think they're trying to democratize it, so I think that's really great. It helps you kind of take an in-depth look at your business and know exactly what level you're at, right, across 8 categories. So it's a whole thing, it's really expansive, and after that program, we had a knowledge of exactly where the business was at and where it needed to be by whatever time. And then in December of last year, we got into Black Box Connect, which was in Silicon Valley, and that entirely focused on the founders as people, right? It went from wellness to identifying your role in the company, to knowing your own personal vision and your vision for the company, to building company culture and all of those things around leadership. And then we went into Google Launchpad Africa, which was our 3rd and final one. And that taught us to look into the product, to do a deep dive into the product and how it related to the users. What do they want? Are you fulfilling their needs? What do your users really get from your product? That kind of thing. So I think that for accelerator programs and to make choices, it's essential to know what your business needs at that time. So when we started Piggy Bank in 2016, it became this whole thing that grew really fast. And for young founders like us, it's important to be grounded, right? Not think that your business has become this giant entity, because in reality, it's not. So it was really fortuitous that we got into Village Capital at that time. And it showed us, okay, in marketing, you're nowhere. You're in this space, you're nowhere. In product market fit, you still have a long way to go. Your exit, you don't have it straight. And so all of those things were revealed to us from that accelerator program. So you have to, there is no one size fits all. And that is why I resent people saying they don't like the Silicon Valley model. The Silicon Valley model allows you to take risks. That's what a startup is. If you want to invest in someone, something else, then do that. But if you keep investing in startups, then you are going to have to let them fail or succeed. And so you keep the programs, they do a variety of things, and you kind of have to figure out, this is what my business needs, this is what this program offers, so I'm going to apply to it, that kind of thing.
So I'm going to just take you back a bit because I know a lot of people here want to see where you are coming from and how you got to those places that you talked about. So for you, what was that key thing that got Piggy Bank into those accelerator programs?
I mean, I will say, without any bias, that Piggy Bank is a great product. So there's that. And apart from that, the founding team of Piggy Bank, we've been together for a while, and we had worked on another product before together. So important things for any investor and accelerator program is the cohesiveness of the team. Now, there are accelerator programs that help you put together your team in the program, but that's not what these ones were. So the fact that the team was cohesive, the fact that there was already kind of a driving vision, helped us get into Village Capital. In Black Box, it was more about the person, you as a person. Like, do you have certain goals that Black Box can help you achieve? Right, so coming from where we were coming from, like I said, we're new into the ecosystem, right? But it was important for us when we applied to Village Capital to tell them what we wanted from it. And what we really wanted was mentorship. And because by December 2015, December 2016, when we applied to it, it became obvious that we didn't even know how to monetize the product at that time, right? So that was something that we were struggling with, and we actually figured out our monetization in the second leg of the workshop, right? So there was that, and we didn't know the business model that Piggy Bank was. Blade Capital helped us do that, right? The evaluation of KPIs and all of those things, and division of roles in the company, those are important, right? So you kind of figure those things out early in the game. We hadn't, so we were helped, right? So by Black Box, it was more of a where are you going situation. Can we help you get there? And then for Launchpad, it is, so there's this product that people love. How can we offer them what they want even more? So what Google Launchpad helped us do was segment the users and figure out what do they want. Like, do they want to save, or do they want to do this? How much do they want to save, and how do they want to save? And so, like, coming out of all of those things, we've been launching new products and new features that have been fully formed by these programs that we've been through.
Interesting. Thank you very much. So the next question I'm going to ask, I would like to hear all of you thoughts, actually. So I know this is something that borders around every entrepreneur. Basically, every entrepreneur wants to go into an accelerator program. Well, let me not be too conclusive, right? But for most people, they feel, okay, this is good, and my company or startup can actually benefit from this, right? So when you now, indirectly, when we begin to create this idea of, oh, the foreign counterparts are the destination or preferred destination, then I think there's a problem we need to look at internally, right? So first of all, so let me start with you, Nii. For you, what are the primary motivations or motives for the people looking towards the West and not, starting from, like the local place, like Nigeria or your respective countries? Yeah, for acceleration. So I'm going to ask, okay, let me make this direct to you. Okay, so you went through, so you most likely tell people, oh, I went through Ventures Platform, and Ventures Platform is Nigeria, right? So I want to know, why did you choose Nigeria? Why did you choose, and then you made a leap further and you went Ghana, which is also very close, like it's very close to home. So why are you looking, at these accelerators? Why not the foreign-based guys that a lot of people would consider as a preferred destination?
Okay, so for us, we are actually targeting Africa, and so therefore our target market is in Africa. So we needed to understand the market, and then we need people who understand the market also to just hold our hands and help us get through. So for us, we decided to come back to Nigeria because initially when we first started account here, we were targeting Africa as a whole, and we're getting users from different part of the Africa. We have users from Tanzania, users from Kenya, users from Mozambique, Ivory Coast, and we take a step backward and like, so where should we start from? We can add value to all of them, so let's look at Nigeria. So we decided to take Nigeria and let's look for people or a kind of organization or program that will help us understand Nigerian market. So that's why we got into Ventures platform. We chose Ventures platform because one, Ventures platform have the network, and also they have a lot of mentors that could really help. Because for us, yeah, we're generating revenue, and when we look at what Ventures platform is putting to the table is something that will make in 4 months. So money isn't why we actually go into the acceleration. We know the money is going to help us, but at the same time, we need the network. And so we got that. We got people who really understood the market, who actually thought of things. And the whole idea is you don't need to pass through the fire yourself when you have people who literally throw you over the fire. And that was why we decided that let's go to Ventures platform. Now, after that, we look at the next market because we have a roadmap. And after Nigeria, so where's next? Is Ghana and Kenya. So who are those who are playing in this space? Mest actually have their office or acceleration program in Ghana. So yeah, it's easier for us. And maybe the next one we're going to get to is the village capital. So.
Okay, so Yemi, your thoughts on that?
I mean, can you take the question again? Because direct it to me.
Okay,
it's
so
different from you.
you finally made that decision to go into an accelerator program,
Yeah.
and it was 500 startups.
Yeah.
Wow.
First, they understand the space that we are playing in. They've invested in a lot of companies. There's something they do in 500 startups where they assign a growth hacker to your company, and the guy that was attached to us scaled Printify. There's a company called Printify. The guy scaled the company. He was consulting for spreadsheets as at the time that we were 500 startups. Now, these are businesses that are very, very similar to our business. I mean, he was able to say, oh, the structure of your site is not good enough for SEO. You guys need to work on this place, because he has done several years doing that. So we went into 500 startup basically because, yes, money, mentorship, network, and all that, but they actually understand the space. They've even exited a similar business like ours, like I said earlier. They invested in that business, and within 3 years, it was sold. And I mean, they understand web to print. We were going to do YC, but YC as at that time had only invested in spreadsheets. T-Springs, which is a bit similar to our model, but it's the only business that they've invested in. And we just figured that it makes more sense to do 500 startups. So, and I haven't spoken to Dave and Monique even before the application. It made a lot of sense for us. When we were doing our interview, I remember we wanted to start talking about the business model, and they were like, no, let's jump to growth and scale and every other thing and team. They didn't even listen to the business model because they were like, oh, we have just 20 minutes for the interview. And we were trying to tell them, oh, it's web to print, and they were like, no, we get it. Let's move straight to growth, your how far you guys have scaled, what the team is made of, and what else you want to do.
When we first started, the investors in Nigeria did not understand the business. So, like I said, is you apart from the exposure, like you said something here today, you said the money is in Silicon Valley. So the people here who have the money, they're like essentially middlemen. So what you just do is jump over and just go straight to the source. And number two is who wants your startup, right? What I've seen, and this is a personal opinion, is that people from outside the country are more willing to take risks on us than people in here. So this isn't an aspersion on anyone, it's just a personal opinion from a personal experience. I've seen phenomenal startups in Nigeria be unable to get funding. And then, they turn their attention to people outside of the country, and then the money comes, right? So personally for us, it wasn't a matter of like, if you wanted to like talk to piggy bank, we were available, but like so many people didn't get the business initially. Now they get it because people outside the country now understand the business as well, but they didn't get it. They didn't want to talk about it, and they didn't think we would succeed. So there's that, and there's all those risks that they associated with the product that, well, the accelerator programs that we got into didn't associate with the product. And so, in all honesty, that's it. It's who wants you and who's willing to be associated with you when your product is still, at the end of the day, still really struggling, really weak. So, yeah.
Thank you. So, I'm going to let you take the next question. So I gather from your responses that, knowing your, first of all, having a product that is good, at least something to work with, is a very, essential part of, getting into an accelerator. I also understand that the investor relationship as well is important, right? And you mentioned something very interesting about, taking a risk, which a lot of our local players do not do, and these guys do that. And that brings me to the next, let me just say tricky question that, tricky might not be the word, like a bit controversial, if I'm allowed to say that. And that's the issue of stake, right? So these guys are willing to take the risk, but trust me, no risk is small. So yeah, no risk is small. I mean, like, I look at people like Y Combinator, they give you 120K for 7% of your company. And I know Yomi is going to say something about 500 startups. They give you 6% for, $150,000 for 6%. So now let us look at the stake involved, right? Do we feel the all parameters are right, like the benchmark and all of that? When you look at them, do you feel does it justify what you get and what you're giving out?
The benchmark for where? Is it for local and international?
I mean the international.
Yeah, I think so. For the international, definitely. You give away 7% of your company if it will expose you to VCs that you never in a million years would have been in the same room with, which is essentially what 500 startups, YC, and for us, Black Box, put us in the same room. Like, there's a company in the US called Mint that was acquired within 2 years of their operations by another company called Intuit. Right? We had read about them, I'd met them at Black Box. I met the founder of Mint. And I could have been in a number of places and never met that guy. So I'd give you like a sizable stake in my business for that. What I wouldn't do is give you that stake in my business for 1/5 of that money and not as much connections. So
Yomi, you can say something about that.
I mean, it will always be worth it for that stage of your business. I can tell you that for free because you won't get that deal in Nigeria. Sorry to say. In fact, if you are in rooms where local investors are talking, you hear conversations where they're like, "Geez, we're going to invest in that company for $1 million US," and then the next thing they are in 500 startups getting 150K for 6%, which is like 3x of the valuation that they were thinking of. Or they are now in YC and then they got a 10x or 7x valuation of the same thing. So, I mean, it's worth it. If you look at the money, if you look at the valuation, the stake, I mean, 7% of your business and 5 or 6% of your business for that value at that stage, it's actually worth it. And I mean, it's not a question whether it's worth it or not. It's not a conversation to have. I'm sorry to say that. And then in addition to that, if you look at the deals, so you look at it's one thing to look at the amount being invested and the stake the investor is taking. It's another thing to look at the documents that is tying you and that investor together in that marriage. 500 startup uses a document called KISS. If you Google now, you find KISS online. It's so simple. You can execute it, but you can download it and then you fill in the name and you're done. YCUC is safe. If you Google it now, you find it online. There is no local investor that you can find their document anywhere in Africa today, right? And it's not because of anything. It's basically because, again, the appetite for risk. So local investors will say, oh, I want to bought seed, I want this, I want that for that. And the guys in Silicon Valley will say, you know what, just sign this document, I'll wire 150 into your account, and then go build this business. So you look at the appetite for risk. Now, you can't blame the local investors because people haven't seen the kind of exit that will give them that appetite to want to write those checks quickly. So, yes. But like I said earlier, trust me, it's worth it. Yeah.
All right, Nee, so a bit of thoughts on that.
Well, I think for us, we got into an acceleration that actually gave us 20K for 10%. So we're going to look at that is compared to what the foreign guy is giving, man, like
20K for 10%.
yeah, 20K for 10%. They're like, okay, so what kind of thing is that? But what for us, the reason why we actually took that is because I remember we actually applied for Techstar that's in South Africa, but we're not actually taken. But we just felt since we're coming down to Nigeria, so let's take a look at it. How many people do I know personally? Like, if I talk to my dad, can you give me Shegun Agbaji's number? That's the CEO of GTB. Definitely no. So we need people who, when you look at the awards, that's an SO here given, well, you can take that risk. And well, for us, it's actually working. We don't regret taking a 20K and for 10%. So, well, I think it depends on what you want, and that helps you to take your decision.
So you're also saying that it also depends on who you meet, right?
Exactly.
Because I was about saying, so since we have this sort of, should I say, people look more to the foreign guys because of their whole understanding, their appetite for risks and what have you. So I was about asking, so what do we need to, shake up, I mean, in the local players and local accelerators that we have?
Okay, well, for me, I would say there's no acceleration in Nigeria that will be up to YC because most of the programs we have actually get funding even from YC. So, and they're trying to manage that fund because at the same time, they're accountable for those funds and they won't want to take that kind of risk. So it's better for them to find a way to balance up. Yeah.
So I completely disagree with that, sir. First of all, yes, if they are getting funded by YC and all those other companies, yes, they won't be up to. But the important thing, we raised funding from here, right? We raised $1.1 million in funding almost exclusively from Nigerians, right? And for the most part, that's unprecedented, right? But that also means that there are those people in Nigeria who can fund these kind of programs, right? Like you just said, like that the appetite for risk because there's not all of those exits. How are there going to be those exits if no one is taking those risks? For us, it was someone just introduced us to someone who we explained the business to, and the person did exactly like a foreign investor would. Send me your account details. I love the business. Right? There are those people in this country. There are those people in this ecosystem. Our programs, right, our investors, and they've done so much for the ecosystem. But all of this just means that there is so much more work to be done to identify these private sector individuals who can fund these programs. The LPs to YC to 500 startups are people like this in the equivalent of the US economy. So they can be like that. They can be like that. Right? There's companies like Andela, right, who are doing this from raising money and churning out developers, right? There's no reason why there's like a person cannot be the Zuckerberg to Andela for an accelerator program. Here, you just need to find the right people and convince them. But for you to convince those people, you as an investor need to be able to be convinced that the startups that you're seeing are worth taking the risk for. That's where the divide is that these investors are not taking enough risks on us, and they're not to be blamed because there's not enough exits, but it's a chicken and egg situation where you have to take those risks for us to see exits. right? InterSwitch acquired Banzo. We have the potential, right? But like, we're not realizing it, so.
So,
Also, people are raising money in this economy. They are just not announcing it. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. People are wasting money in this economy. They are just not announcing it.
So when you say raising money, do you mean from an accelerator
No,
program or
from
just
this
individually?
place. So I'll tell you something. We went into 500 startups and we raised money from 500 startups, and then from other foreign investors, and then from local investors. I mean, I walked into a meeting in Silicon Valley during our program, and the next thing someone said was, "Hey, this is the currently 500 and we're Nigerians." And 2 weeks later, the two Nigerians wired us money straight up, and they are here, but they were in the Valley for an event. So that money is here. Every time I meet startup founders who raise money, the first thing I say to them is, "Guy, we actually have to prove our point with this money, because every time a startup goes under, it's exactly counts against us. Every time I hear that companies close shop, the first thing I think in my head is, oh geez, the reputation is gone." Because the point is, the more good exits we have, the more successful companies we have, the more good stories we have, we'll be able to give people the confidence to actually write checks. People are gradually getting interested in investing in startups. When Konga's story came out, I mean, I had like 2 days of feeling bad about it, because we were like, this is the shining light. This is actually some. So I mean, we need those stories, and founders also have something to do. But we also can't have those stories if we don't get those, which is why you are literally dancing around the situation, going for accelerator programs, getting investors who can get here, just to prove our point that something can be built in this place.
So I'm sure every one of you here are listening to this conversation. If I probably understood one thing that you just said, and that's honesty. Like, so when you go out there to raise fund, you're not just raising fund for yourself. You're raising fund, because a lot of people are looking at you, right? And you're also representing the ecosystem that you come from. So one thing is that people are going to judge you based on people are going to judge others, right, based on what you do. So it's also very important that you put your best foot forward. So I'm going to close this session by asking a final question. I just need just 2 people to volunteer, right? Just 2 people to just give me answers. So I haven't said all of this. So let's look at it. What should the ideal accelerator, like geared towards us Africans, look like? So Yemi, you can. I wanted it to be anyone just.
I think so 3 things. It should have strong connections in the market, enough to help a startup scale. That's the first thing. And when I say enough connection in the market to help a startup scale, it includes finding the right partners for that company. It includes helping those companies raise enough money to scale, enough people that can actually mentor those businesses. I've seen companies go into accelerators and they became successful just because of the kind of connections they were able to connect with. They were able to connect with a bigger company that was doing 1,000x of what they were doing, that could say, you know what, we could give you this pipeline and you guys can just, and they were able to strike a partnership that opened the door for them. So those things are very, very important. Have enough connections to help those startups scale. It's very, very important. If people come in and the only thing they're able to learn things they didn't know, and then they leave your accelerator, and the next thing they are back in the water struggling as if they actually didn't pass through that program. I think that it's the only thing I have with accelerators in this space, where people just go in, they do 2 or 3 weeks or 2 months, and they are out, and your Rolodex can actually open doors for them. I think it's a minus.
So Who else? Odun? Me? Anyone? No.
Who's taking it?
So, well, for me, I would say an ideal acceleration, just as mentioned, should actually look for people who really understand the market. And I think that's one thing that every startup seems to be struggling with. Don't really understand the market, and the reason is because we don't have enough data in terms of market research that could help us. So accelerators should actually look down and help startup do the research, give them things they could really work on to help them to like make this product for this particular market. Because sometimes when you develop a product, you have this idea in your head, this is the problem that we're solving, and the problem looks fantastic. And you look at the market, and you're like, have a million of people who you could really sell to. But at the end of the day, you discover that the market dynamics is very, very different. And because you don't have that data right from time, then it makes you to keep rebuilding and rebuilding and rebuilding, and that takes a whole lot of time. So for me, I would say an ideal acceleration, and accelerators should try as much as possible to get as market research available for the startup to actually scale.
Thank you very much. So, for us members of the audience, I know our interests are, are diverse. Some of us want to run businesses. Some of us want to, invest. Some of us want to, run. So, it's just, broad. But for those of us that would, want to go into, accelerator, or probably you feel okay, that's something you would like to do in the future. So these are key pointers, right? Help be able to have the connection to drive, conversion for your cohort. Also have ready market data available for them, because these are very, very quite important. So thank you guys. I really appreciate the doing this with me. Like it's very enlightening and interesting. But I'm going to allow 2 or 3 questions from members of the audience. So you have questions for the people up here. So please.
Okay, good evening. My name is Tunde Egwetola. My question is either for Piggy Bank or Pritinvo, since you guys did the acceleration outside of Nigeria. Did you guys have to do a change of registration, like to Delaware and all those type of places, to be able to receive that money?
Okay, so we didn't have to. YC won't invest anywhere outside Nigeria, but sorry, outside the US. But for 500 startups, they actually have in situations where they can actually invest outside the US, and it's actually one of the major reasons why we chose 500 startups. So we didn't have to incorporate in the US for any reason.
That answers it, right? Yeah. So the next person, any other person? 3. So that's the second to the last person. All right. Can you help me pass the mic?
Thank you very much. I'm Elizabeth. So I would like to know an instance of an ideal exit, because we've been hearing exit, and me personally, I don't really understand what exit is all about. So I would like to have an instance of a good exit. And secondly,
She has another one. Okay.
Secondly, Nigerian investors, there is no database. How do we get to meet and assess a Nigerian investor?
Okay, for an exit is usually is typically when the investors in the startup can cash out, right? Get the value for their stake back in cash. And that usually occurs when a startup is sold, or I guess IPO, they then fully trade their stake, right? So essentially, the most typical example here in Nigeria is in acquisition of Vanzo. And I guess you that was acquisition of Conga, but that's really positive. So, company called Vanzo. So if you just what a Nigerian looks like. And and investor database. Now, I don't think there's a generic one, but I know that the cohort for my set, we it where we update. You can hear me? Okay. Whether an investor is a no-go or a go, right? So, but that's private, right? So I'm hoping that throwing the idea out there will help someone create one where people can just access details about an investor.
So now, question? Okay, so I have a hand. The mic, please.
I've got the mic. Good evening, everybody. My name is Vuisa Kabaka. I'm from South Africa. My questions to the three founders. We here with a program called the Village Capital Communities Africa program. And part of the purpose of the program is to advance and improve the outcomes of entrepreneurship support organizations throughout Africa. We have 15 people in the cohort representing about 32 countries on the continent. Now, again, for me personally, as much as I know Dave, I know Michelle, I know a lot of the guys running the programs. I'm a mentor in Techstars and various programs around the world, South by Southwest. So I've done a few of these things, but part of why we really are advancing this particular program is to find out from you guys, what is it that you believe you need so that you can begin to start supporting programs in Africa? Because the reality is 500 startups are going to help you scale across Africa. Okay, so just what are your thoughts that you believe a pan-African ecosystem needs to ensure that we're producing quality startups?
Okay, so I had said that earlier that if there is one thing that we want African accelerators to give, it's the ability to open doors for the companies in their courts. I mean, you have a company in Nigeria that wants to expand to Cape Town. Do you have people in Cape Town that you can say this company needs partners to work with? Let's get it done. Do you have companies in Kenya that you can do that? Do you have company in Nigeria? It's one of the things that you need to work on, because, I mean, money is one of the things that makes a company great, but it is just one nutrient in everything that you need. So it's just one factor. The rest, money may not even be able to buy. And most of the startups that we've seen do great things, especially in Africa, are startups that can actually sign the best partnerships and get doors open as fast as possible. You can get money from Silicon Valley, that's perfect, but someone who is sitting in Menlo Park cannot open door for you with GT Bank or UBA or any big telco or MTN to scale your products on their users. You know, so that's one of the key things that I see as being very, very important.
No, I guess like you guys are already doing it, but it's more creating like how for us, the people I did the fintech cohort with in 2017, we still have a WhatsApp group where we communicate with like, okay, so these applications are open for this, apply, or this person is coming to Nigeria, would you like to meet? So that's on a Pan-African scale with the number of startups that exist now, where you can then kind of induct people who are upcoming into like kind of that group and I mean, I also think that the government has a great role to play in getting us a Pan-African ecosystem. It's more expensive to travel within Africa than it is to travel out of Africa, so that's really problematic. So yeah.
So I guess you heard that, right? I said 3. Okay, so someone hijacked the mic. So I'm going to allow that person, and that will be all for today. So please, kindly give him the mic.
Hi, thank you all. It's been really fascinating stuff. I was curious when you're talking about the Nigerian opportunities, the opportunities in Nigeria to people in Silicon Valley. Me personally, it's few and far between that I meet people that actually know much about it at all. And on a good day, they're just really curious and don't know anything. And on a bad day, you hear some really kind of like backward kind of stuff come out of their mouth. So what are methods that you use for like describing the opportunity here that catch people's attention and convince them and get them bought into the idea that there's a lot of opportunity here in a convincing way that like connects with their experience, that allows you like them to hear more about your business?
I think one of the best ways to get people to buy into your idea, irrespective of the difference in geography, language, or whatever, is numbers, right? So we were able to actually show them numbers to say, this is what we're making from XYZ number of customers, and this is how long we have done this, and this is how much we go quarter on quarter. And think about this, if we get into this program and we're able to raise as much money as we want to raise, and we're able to get all the connections we're able to get, we can actually double or triple this within a year. And these guys were like, oh, this company is making this amount of money from, let's say, 6,000 customers. And they're in a market where they can actually scale as high as 100,000 customers in 2 years. This is an opportunity, right? So, I mean, for me, it's just numbers. It works every time.
Okay. So, all right. Thank you very much, everybody. I know you've all had to, travel a long way to come here and all of that. So, I really, really say thank you so much for you all coming here. And I also want to thank my panelists for doing justice to the conversation. I mean, for me, it was really interesting and insightful as well. So, thank you.